In this video we travel southeast looking for more birds for our year list. We extend our big year challenge, we look for a wader we failed to see a couple of times, and also we see a rarity we're not allowed to count on our year list. This adventure started off with about 4 hours on the road with a few diversions. Hey folks, another adventure, and this time we're starting off in Lincolnshire. Different place, yeah. We've been in Yorkshire a lot. There's not much about. It's quite quiet this weekend, so we're gonna.
Because the wind is coming from the wrong direction.
Yeah, we're gonna risk it. We've risked it. So let's see if it pays off.
We haven't got a number yet of what we're going for.
Oh geez, yeah, our number. We hit our 250, and you guys have been saying 260, 270. What do you reckon? Do you want to head for 270?
I'm going to try 270.
Right, we're going to put a target on 270.
If we fail, we'll do it next year.
Yeah, it's lofty, but we'll see how it goes. So this is now going to be the 270 bird challenge. See you in the morning. We woke up to a very cold morning at RSPB Frampton Marsh. As Kaylee was getting ready, I headed out into the reserve for a little walk. I took the straight path which heads towards a bank that overlooks the salt marsh, with fields on the right full of cattle and an awful lot of geese. Morning folks, it's still reasonably dark even though it's 20 to 8. I've just come out for a bit of a walk and there's like deafening sounds of geese around me. There's a lot in the field. I'm just going to have a look through them in a minute, see if there's anything interesting. Stick with me. As the light improved, I scanned through this huge flock of noisy geese. Most of them here were grey-lag geese. There must have been hundreds of them. There was a small amount of the usually more common Canada goose here too. A little further up the path past the geese, there were groups of ducks feeding in the shallow water and grass. Most of these were widgeon. There was a good number of teal, and amongst them a couple of moorhen. But now it was time to climb up onto the bank, which overlooked on one side the salt marsh and on the other side a muddy scrape with shallow water. This area is usually good for waders, and I was really hoping for one specific wader that we've been missing off our year list. And after 2 unsuccessful attempts in our previous video, we were hoping to find a little stint. Walking towards this scrape, I did spook some waders that flew off. I feared that the little stint we were after that had been seen here on previous days was amongst them and left, until I saw a group of dunlin, and amongst the dunlin, a very small and very active little wading bird. Finally, I'd found the little stint. This species is tiny, only about the same size as a robin, so reasonably unmistakable. Little stints are not UK breeders. They breed high in Arctic Siberia and are long-distance migrants wintering in Africa. Luckily, we do get them on UK shores, usually on passage during spring and autumn migration. Feeling pretty pleased with this success, I headed back along the bank, passing this little egret feeding on the salt marsh, and as I got a bit further down the bank, there were more sounds of geese, but this time, not grey-lag geese. These were a smaller species, the Brent goose, or as you guys in America like to call, the Brant. This is a reasonably small species of goose that winters here in the UK. As more and more Brent geese flew in off the salt marsh, I headed down the bank and onto the path towards Kaylee. Hey folks, that was good. I think I've got the little stint, which we've been looking for like ever, which was great. I've got a lovely fly pass from 2 kingfishers, and I've never seen so many Brent geese in my life. Excellent. As I headed down the path, Kaylee was walking towards me, and then she stopped to look at something. It turns out she was pretty transfixed with this large flock of goldfinch that were feeding on teasel. When she finally noticed me, we headed towards the 360 hide. Hey! She's up and about. We've just seen a lovely flock of hooper swans. That was ace.
And a weasel.
And a weasel or a stoat, which I always get wrong and get pointed out, which is okay. Last time we came here, the area outside this hide was really dry. This time, the water was back, and so were the birds. Or should I say ducks. There really weren't many waders, just a whole lot of widgeon and teal. some of which were feeding, but most were roosting. On the way out of the hide, we looked over the other pool. There were plenty of waders here. There were lapwings scattered about the islands. Also, in the shallow water was a group of avocet. And as we walked further down the path, there was another large group of waders in the shallow water. This group was mixed and comprised of lapwing, black-tailed godwit, and also some ruff. But now we decided it was time to leave Frampton and move just up the road to RSPB Freeston Shore. Hey folks, we're at Freeston Shore, which isn't too far from where we've just been at Frampton. Yesterday there was a Rednecked Grebe here, which is a bird we have seen this year, but only once and at a distance, and it was freezing cold.
Yeah, it was very
so
cold.
We thought, as it's so close, it might be worth just having a nip in, just to have a look. Stick with them. After a short walk, we soon arrived at the hide. We sat down and looked over a small pool where apparently, the previous day, a Rednecked Grebe had been present. We started looking through all the birds present, and there were plenty of grebes, but most of them were little grebes, some youngsters and some adults too. There were a large group of ducks here, mostly widgeon and teal, but there was also a few pintail amongst them, which was lovely to see. Close to the bank there was mute swans dabbling, and also there was another species of swan, one we didn't expect, the black swan. This amazing looking Australian species isn't a visitor. These two stunning birds will be descendants of escaped or released swans. Regardless though, amazing to see. At this point, eagle-eyed Kaylee spotted a bird in the distance, swimming behind some plastic netting. This looked very much like the Rednecked Grebe we were looking for, but unfortunately it swam out of sight behind some vegetation, so I went for a walk to try and get a better view, seeing this great crested grebe on the way, but finally getting a clear view of this wonderful Rednecked Grebe. This species is very rare, and although a small handful of these are suspected to breed in the UK, any potential breeding sites are kept secrets to protect these amazing grebes. And due to this species is often only seen in small numbers during autumn and winter. And as this was only the second time we'd seen this species, and these views were by far the best we had, we were happy. It was time now to move on. Hey folks, we did see the Rednecked Grebe. We got in the hide and it wasn't really obvious, and then Kaylee spotted it. It was hiding at the back of the pools. You dropped something.
I dropped
It was hiding at the back of the pools and then swam past some kind of netting, so I couldn't see it properly again, and hid behind some vegetation, so I had a bit of a wander and got a slightly better view. Although that's not a lifer or a new year tick, it's a really cool bird, and one we'd only seen once before, so that's ace.
That's a really good colour on it.
It was lovely,
Yeah.
really nice bird. So we're going to drive for a couple of hours now and head into Norfolk towards Titchwell Marsh to see what's there. So stick with us, let's see what we find. It took us about an hour and 3/4 to get to RSPB Titchwell Marsh. It rained most of the way, but when we arrived, the rain stopped, at least for now, and we headed out into the reserve. Passing en route this wonderful muntjac deer that was feeding just off the path. It didn't seem at all bothered by us. It gave us a little glance and then continued on. Further up the path, looking over the marsh on one side, there was a pair of curlew feeding in the grass. On the other side of the path, there was a large pool that was overlooked by a hide. On a bank in the middle of the pool, there were hundreds of birds. Looking closer, we discovered the birds on the bank were all golden plover. This species breed on high moorland and are usually quite shy in breeding season, but in the winter gather together in large flocks like this, generally by the coast. We stood watching these lovely golden plovers for quite a while, whilst large flocks of brent geese flew over our heads, some worryingly low. Whilst we were looking on, enjoying the break in the rain, a bird flew over the bank and across the water in front of us. This was a bird that's pretty familiar, and will be from anyone who's seen our videos when we went to the south of France. This pretty unique bird with absurdly long legs and black and white plumage is a black-winged stilt, and is quite a rarity in the UK, although they have been known to breed on a few occasions recently. This particular bird, although we'd love to count it on our year list, apparently we can't. It had been reported and we'd been previously told by one of the wardens on the reserve that it's an escapee. So bred in captivity and not a wild bird. That's a shame. Never mind, cool to see anyway. Not the bird we were here to look for though.
Hey folks, we're in Norfolk. We're at Titchwell Marsh. We've just walked a little bit down and seen a few birds already, like lots of golden plovers. And also a black-winged stilt, which normally we'd obviously add to our list.
But it's an escape.
Apparently they're aware that this one's an escape, so we can't do it. Massive shame. Flew right over us and landed a bit in the distance. Had a bit of a feed. But we're after some snow buntings for our year list, which are a little bit further ahead. So stick with us, see if we can find them. Let's go.
We walked along the long path towards the beach, passing on our right hand side quite a few wading birds. There was this super confiding black-tailed godwit that was feeding really close to the edge, and this redshank that was feeding in this lovely coloured vegetation. Soon enough the path ended and we found ourselves on the beach. On the way to the beach we'd bumped into a couple of our subscribers who'd said that the snow buntings were hanging around not far from a dead seal that were on the beach. So we headed in that direction and pretty soon we found these little camouflaged buntings. They were jumping around and feeding both in the sand and on some old pieces of black timber that were on the beach. Although feeding separately, they would occasionally come together if they found something interesting, like this shell. This species breed in small numbers in the Highlands of Scotland and disperse around the coasts in winter. We watched these two for a while until they flew off down the beach. We headed back and on the way nearly fell across them again, really close, feeding on the sand. At this point though, unfortunately, the heavens opened, so we made our way back down the beach, leaving the lovely snow buntings behind. En route we stopped as there was another couple of birders looking at a bird on the water's edge with some oyster catchers. This was a sanderling, and further up the beach we saw a couple of others. These birds are never still. They run up and down, busily picking off insects. When we finally got to the hide, we were pretty soaked through, and although the hide was busy with people sheltering from the rain, there weren't that many birds. All the golden plovers appeared to have gone and were replaced by black-headed gulls, grey-lag geese and lapwings, with the odd shell duck swimming past in the rain. We decided to head now back towards the van, passing our friend the muntjac deer on the way, this time sheltering under some bushes. We grabbed a cup of tea from the cafe, dried off a bit in the van, then headed a bit further round the coast, to where an interesting bird of prey had been sighted. Not this one, this is a red kite. But as soon as we parked up, something more interesting was reported.
Hey, so we were on the way to somewhere where in the past few days there'd been a couple of sightings of a pallid harrier, which is a bird we wanted to see, but I've failed a lot in the past. When we got there was a report nearby of a bird I want to see more, which is an Autum Bunting, which would be a lifer. So we're heading now, racing there now, hoping we find it, and we're going to put the pallid harrier on the back burner. Stick with us.
Excited by the prospect of this continental bunting, we parked up and quickly made our way down a path to where this bird had been reported.
Hey folks, so we're here where the Autum Bunting has been seen. We're walking up to it now, about 5 minutes away. Really hope it's still there.
When we arrived, there were no other birders there, which was a little bit unusual, but soon a few others turned up. Unfortunately though, no sign of this Autum Bunting. We searched up and down the path in all the grasses where it had been reported, but nothing but a couple of reed bunting. On the opposite side of the path there were a group of Egyptian geese, but no signs of our rare target bird. Ourselves and a group of other birders searched all the nearby area, with no luck. So, a little deflated, we headed slowly back towards the van, passing en route this wonderful marsh harrier that flew by into a flock of gulls, who subsequently scattered. At this point we headed back towards our previous stop, which was to try and find a pallid harrier,
This bird was seen while we were at the Autum Bunting spot, and by the time we arrived back, it was getting towards dusk. Regardless, we headed out towards the marsh to try and find it, seeing a lot of birds en route flying into roost, including large groups of Brent geese and starlings too. Eventually, we did see a harrier. It wasn't the pallid harrier though, unfortunately, it was another marsh harrier.
Hey folks, we went to try and find the Autum Bunting and no luck. When we arrived there was no other birders there, and then when some other birders showed up, everybody looked around for quite a while, couldn't locate it. So during that time a pallid harrier was seen here where I am now. By the time we arrived back here, unfortunately we think it was probably a little too late. May have gone to roost. So we did see a mystery bird of prey, which we're really hoping is a merlin, so we can add that to our year list, but it may just be a kestrel. I'll have to find out when I lighten the video when I get home. Anyway, back to the van. We're going to grab some dinner and drive somewhere to park for the night.
Feel free to comment on that bird of prey. What do you think it is? As we lost the light, we headed towards the van, seeing when we got back to the car park in the pool, a spoonbill fishing in the dark. The following morning we had plans to see quite an avian spectacle. More on that in the next video. Thanks for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and please press the notification bell. See you next time.